Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but as always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director or have a direct connection to. You should be using them too. So take a listen to our shout outs, then listen to the segment. And then when it's over, go visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Huddle for their support of the podcast. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I wanted a platform that was going to be good for all of our teams. And our coaches and our athletes and our fans just loved the tools that Huddle provided that let them experience the high school sports at the highest level. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com. Their team will show you how to create world-class content for your school's social media channel to celebrate your teams and promote your athletes. Gipper is used and trusted by over 4,000 high school and college programs. It's professional graphic design made easy. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We also want to say thanks to The Ohio University's online Master of Science in Athletic Administration. This affordable 20-month online program focuses exclusively on interscholastic athletics. And when you finish, you're not only going to have your master's degree, you're going to have 11 NIAAA leadership training courses that can go toward your RAA or CAA. You'll also be part of a huge graduate network with connections in athletics across the country. To get started, all you have to do is go to ohio.edu/info/MAA. Check them out today. We want to say thanks to Home Campus. Home Campus is the official high school and state association management platform for us, and it's something you're going to use every single day. Things like scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance. Who doesn't do that every day? Uploading rosters, communicating with your state, your coaches, your parents, your kids. Home Campus does it better, does it faster. It's going to make your life a lot easier. And all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We want to thank Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards for their support. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their scoreboards in action. Probably the best purchase I ever made as an athletic director was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com, schedule that live web demo today. We want to say thank you to Hometown Ticketing. Hometown Ticketing is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more. It's digital ticketing that offers more support, more security, and more customization. Let the Hometown team help you make the best online ticketing solution. We want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to show off your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Their interactive touchscreen, that's right, touchscreen video boards are going to let you do all of those things, plus share your school's unique history and your proudest moments. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check them out today. We want to say thanks to Snap Raise. Go to snapraise.com if you've ever experienced weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then got little, if any, return. You need to stop. Go to snapraise.com. Our school used it with great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. It works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out all of their great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you found it. snapraise.com. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents, your coaches, or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Now, AEDs already get feedback, but usually it's from a small group that want to complain and gripe about everything. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% that supports your program. And that's tremendously valuable information to have when you're talking to a frustrated parent or your principal or maybe even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. This is another segment in our series featuring staff leadership from our state association here in Florida, the Florida High School Athletic Association. And our guest today is somebody that I've known since I just found out he's been a member of FHSAA, Mr. Justin Harrison. He is the Associate Executive Director for the FHSAA, has done a myriad of leadership duties during his time there, but we're excited to have him on today. Justin, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you, Jake. Happy to be a part of it.
Well, I know I've talked with you over the years about, some ways that we can help, first FIAAA and now just, I guess, FHSAA, continue to do the great things that they do. So happy to have you on. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us through your own high school and college days, and then we'll take a break. But what's the Justin Harrison origin story?
Certainly. So I grew up in the state of Virginia in the Chesapeake area. Not a Army brat or a military family. However, my dad was a civilian on the base at the Norfolk Naval Air Station base, giant base up in Virginia. So we did move around a significant amount, spent 2 years even in Sicily. Got that advantage there as a kid that not many do. Anyway, he retired when I was in high school. So I did 9th grade up in Virginia. Then he retired. So I did my 10th, 11th, and 12th grade here in Florida in the North Fort Myers area, North Fort Myers High School graduate. Then I started going to the University of Florida. And what's kind of funny is I never left. I still live in the same town. And as I was a graduate student at the University of Florida, a baseball coaching position came open, a JV job here in town at a school. That's the sport I played my entire life, mainly. I dabbled in other sports, but I was mainly a baseball player in everything I did. So anyway, a position came open. I was like, I've never thought about being a coach, never thought about being a teacher. Let's figure this out. So I did it because the interest was there and jumped on board, and I fell in love with it. Here I am. So did about 7 years at Eastside High School. Then a position came up, 7 years as a dean, in-school detention supervisor, also coach, and did 2 years as the AD. And so then a director position came open here to be over sports and athletics. So jumped ship here in August of 2008, been here ever since. Did a handful of years as a director of certain sports or an administrator of certain sports, and then became fortunate enough to become an assistant executive director over athletics, and 2 years now in my new role over eligibility and compliance. So that's hopefully a quick synopsis of how I got to where I am. So.
Well, we're going to dive deeper into all things FHSAA. I want to go back to, your high school experience. North Fort Myers, I've been on that campus before. I mean, just beautiful part of the state. What was your recollection as a high school athlete, that sophomore, junior, senior year? You said baseball was your number one, but you dabbled in other sports. Did you ever get any, I guess for lack of a better word, did you ever get any pressure from the baseball coach? Hey, you got to drop those other sports. You should be, spending time with us year round. Was that a thing back when you were in high school?
It was not a thing coming from that actual direction. It was a thing coming from me. It's just, that's the sport I fell in love with, and just found times doing it year round and just started doing on my own. Never felt any pressure from a coach, never felt any pressure from my parents. They were supportive in any way I went. And so it just happened to be I kind of my own choice. Kind of looking back on it now, I kind of curious, hey, what if I would have done that? It's kind of funny. The older I get, there's more, hey, kind of wish I would have tried a different sport. I have ventured into one of my hobbies is triathlons now. So I would have loved to have swam in high school. I would have loved to maybe do more running, whether it cross country or track and field, just to have that experience now. Because if you see me finishing at the end of the race, you'll see why. So, I was a very sport specific kid, but that was kind of just the interest I have, even having to watch sports, like just really big on that one sport my whole life.
Hmm. Now, looking back, let's just focus maybe on your high school baseball. Can you look back to those days? And I think we all, occasionally look back at our playing days. Can you think of a moment that at the time it didn't really seem like much, but now looking back from your perspective as a coach, as a teacher, as a leader, you could say, hey, that moment was significant for me. Anything come to mind?
Absolutely. I think just being able to play and compete and being around a group of guys, in that sport, um, you know, eh, the closeness you had with them and the relationships you developed with those guys you're just around year round, just, working as a team. They would depend on me. I would depend on them, in whatever roles we had at the time. That was the main lesson there. And the days you're tired, some days in the off season or during the summer where all your other friends are maybe going to the beach, well, maybe we should go to the cages first and hit and then go out to the beach. So just that the commitment and the teamwork to me are probably the two biggest things that I still hold on to this day, where it just became something ingrained in me, like this is what you're supposed to do. When you commit to something, when you're part of something, make sure you finish it till the end.
Oh, absolutely. And those are traits that, colleges and employers are looking for, commitment and dedication. And you mentioned teamwork. You have your team now at the FHSAA. That's been a theme that's come up in some of the other FHSA interviews that, hey, we work with other people, we meet every day. It's a team. That's cool to hear. For our listeners, our guest today is Justin Harrison. He's the Associate Executive Director for the Florida High School Athletic Association, our state association here in Florida. We're going to take our first break, but we're coming back with a lot more, so please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Huddle for their support of the podcast. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I wanted a platform that was going to support all of our teams, and Huddle came through like a champ. Our coaches, our student athletes, even our parents just loved all the tools that Huddle provided that allowed our program to experience success at the highest level. At Huddle, we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 8 million users and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to show you how to create world-class marketing content for your school's social media channel. Gipper's used and trusted by over 4,000 high school and college athletic programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made easy. How easy? Hey, it's so easy, even I can use it. Go to Gipper.com. We'd like to say thanks to one of our newest sponsors, the Ohio University Online Master of Science in Athletic Administration. This affordable 20-month online program focuses exclusively on interscholastic athletics. And when you finish, you're going to have your master's degree, but you're also going to have 11 NIAAA leadership training courses to go toward your RAA or CAA. You're also going to be part of a huge graduate network with connections in athletics across the country. To get started, all you have to do is go to ohio.edu/info/MAA. Check them out today.
Okay.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. We're visiting today with Justin Harrison, the Associate Executive Director for the FHSAA. Justin, you mentioned that, when you graduated from college, you got a job, like a lot of us do, teaching and coaching. You also wore some other hats, that dean of students. I did that for a couple of years at one of my schools. What was that like, coming right out of college, jumping into teaching and coaching? And how have those positions and those experiences helped you in your jobs at FHSAA?
Certainly, great question, and I think it molded who I am today. So the biggest thing that I take back from those days, working at the school and working with many of students is, what my experience growing up is just one example. Other families, other students go through many other different environments, have different other living arrangements, have different needs and wants and stuff like that. It opened my eyes to the real world, and it opened my eyes to different points of view. Um, it wasn't that, hey, everything that I experience is how everybody lives. Everything that I know is what everybody knows. Everyone should see it the same way I do. It really opened my eyes. It helped me learn to communicate. Because again, different things are important to different folks. So I think learning different points of view and communication skills was key in that early post-educational career.
You know, um, I I was an AD and a head football coach for most of my career, but there was a 2-year period where I stepped away from being an athletic director to become the dean of students at our school. I was actually approached by our faculty. We'd gone through like 4 deans in 5 years. Um, and long story short, I really enjoyed it. I had two great principals, a middle school principal and upper school principal. We worked well together. And the kids that come into your office when you're the dean of students, I think, that those fit in perfectly to what you were describing, a different experience. And so what are some of your memories from when you were wearing the dean's hat? And again, how have you seen that help you with your work at FHSAA?
Well, just the first thing I would think of is, just unfortunately, some of those students who were, in a low socioeconomic environment, not to any of their control. There was sometimes in their eyes more important things that they had to get done. Unfortunately, maybe showing up to school on time or making sure they're in class all the time, and it's meeting that in the middle, saying, okay, I understand what you're saying, but let's focus on this because this is going to create more avenues for you in the future. So it allowed me to kind of again work on my communication to folks, understand folks better. um, Another thing that I can recall that I learned really well is one of the first times I processed a referral, unfortunately had to assess an out of school suspension. The family came back, met with the principal, and I went to the principal the next day and I said, hey, sorry that happened. I feel like I didn't do my job. I said, how do I get them to agree to what I'm saying? And he sat me down and said, hey, you're delivering news they probably don't want to hear. So it's going to take a skill and the ability to get you to say stuff to them where they kind of agree with you when they're never really going to fully agree. You want them to understand, but not necessarily agree all the time. So it allowed me to learn how to deliver bad news where you're delivering bad news, but trying to reach a positive outcome at some point and relaying that to them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. They may not like it, but hopefully they'll understand it. And again, I was a dean, and I'm still much older than you are now, but I was a dean later in my career, and I could have conversations with parents, truthful conversations. I could tell them, "Hey, when I was a student, I sat in that chair. As a parent, I've sat in your chair with my own kids, so I understand. I know, this is what we're going to do." Um, okay, you coached for a while, you taught for a while, had some great experiences there at Eastside, I'm sure. What was it about the FHSA position that attracted you?
Well, it's kind of funny because one, I never really understood what the association did. And that's what when I talk now, I even say that to folks. I knew it was there. I knew there was a thick book, and I knew the book had a lot of rules. I never understood all of them, how they got there, and all that kind of stuff. So there was a curiosity there. Um, I also, unfortunately, had some negative feelings towards the FHSAA, to be honest with you, to where, who is this group of people making all these decisions when I'm out here doing all this stuff?
Yeah.
And yet they collect a little bit of a fee, I have to follow their rules. They're making decisions when I'm out here every day. So there's a curiosity, and there's also an intrigue to say, hey, I want to be a part of something I don't understand. I also want to be part of something I don't necessarily agree with everything I'm seeing on the outside. So instead of me complaining about something, let me see if I can be a part of something, one, to understand, and then if I can, to try to move forward with it. And it's another way to kind of reach more kids and have more of effect. So that's what kind of led me to apply to the position that was open when I saw it.
Yeah, I think what you just articulated is maybe verbatim for most ADs and coaches. When they first, for whatever reason, come across it, as oh, who are these people? So that's funny, but it's true. Um, we're going to take another break, but when we come back, we're going to take a deep dive into all things FHSAA and some of the areas that Justin has worked with during his time there. So please stay with us. We are coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We'd like to thank Home Campus for their support of the podcast. Home Campus is a platform that you are going to use every single day. I know I did. Things like scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance. Who doesn't do that every day? Communication with your coaches, your league, your parents, with your state association, uploading forms, digital signatures. Home Campus is going to help you do your job better, faster, and it's going to give you a lot more time during the day. To get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's it. Go to homecampus.com. We also want to say thanks to our friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their scoreboards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Their products not only generate income for your athletic department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com.
So, Jake, I see that Home Campus is a sponsor. I want to echo from staff's point of view. They're tremendous to work with. It's a fantastic site. As much growth as they've had in the site and the challenges, just with the changes just here in Florida alone, and they work with it. Based on what I hear and based on what I've seen on my end, it definitely helps out the day-to-day jobs of an AD. ADs have a significant amount of stuff on their plate already, and it's continuing to grow. Home Campus can only add to that. I know there's always that initial learning a program first, but once you learn it, it does have a significant impact and improvement on your day-to-day communication, access to information, a ton of stuff.
Oh, well, guys, thanks for sharing that. And as I tell people in the shout out, as an AD, absolutely, it was just such a pleasant change. And you can remember some of the platforms that were in place before Home Campus and the Home Campus staff. Yeah, there's some training, but they are, if I had an issue, which was rare, but if I did, they typically either an email or a phone call back to me in less than an hour. Sometimes it was instantly, when I first reached out to them. And from the eligibility athletic clearance part, I mean, that alone is well worth the subscription. So thanks for saying that. I'm going to let our friends at Home Campus know that. For our listeners, our guest today is Justin Harrison. He's the Associate Executive Director for the Florida High School Athletic Association. Justin, you kind of alluded to what I think a lot of people first have impressions of the FHSAA. Who are these people and what do they do? Um, and as an athletic director, well, I'll tell our listeners, just like probably like your state association, if you're not in Florida, um, the FHSAA rules, regulations, policies, etc., they are created by our coaches and approved by our athletic directors and by our principals and superintendents, and then by the FHSAA board, which is made up of coaches and ADs and superintendents and community members. So it's not like there's some secret organization in a glass tower. Their office is only one story, so it can't be a tower. Creating all these things. Now, truth be told, and Justin, you'll agree with me on this, there are some policies that were not created by coaches or ADs, but are state statutes from our Florida legislature that apply to athletics, that we are bound to, follow. We can't break state law, even if we want to. But FHSA, it's been my experience, and I've been here over 20 years, either as an active AD and coach or now. I think FHA does a fantastic job. So let's talk about some of the things that you do and why you think they are the most important thing. Those are my words, not yours. Okay.
Certainly. So right now I've last 2 years I've moved over into the eligibility and compliance department after spending probably 13 plus years over in athletics. So now, it's getting kids on the team, getting kids on the court, getting kids on the field, with that level playing field, making sure folks are complying with the rules. So I see our role now, and I say our because we're always a team. The eligibility and compliance department it's our role to get the rules out there so folks are following them on the front end. It's to be as proactive and as educational as we can to work with folks. And as you mentioned, there are numerous rules, numerous bylaws and policies. If some are out of date, let's communicate about those and go through the process on how to review, potentially change those and how that works. So our role I see now is getting information out so people can operate every day and deal with the hard stuff on their end, allow us to help with the rules. You do, the coaching, the games and the operational stuff at the school end. We'll help you make sure, hey, here's the rules you need to know moving forward.
Now, you've been involved with FHSAA since I believe you said 2008. In that time, what's an area where you feel that the FHSA has really grown and, let's say, again, my words, become more responsive to athletic directors and their concerns compared to when you first started?
I think it's been key to listen to folks. So I think, our phones are always on, our emails are always working. There hasn't been a glaring feeling that I have that folks feel like they do not have a voice. We try to get out of the office more. Zoom has allowed for a lot more stuff since the pandemic behind us a few years ago, to where we can hop on meetings with folks. Two of our staff are just planning on going to Escambia County here in a few weeks. I'm going down to South Florida in about 3 weeks. So just the openness and the availability to get out and get in front of folks and responding to calls and emails.
Now, your first several years, you mentioned you were in athletics and operations, and now you're in compliance. We've had a couple folks on from your compliance department, great interviews. Let's talk about the athletic portion. Where have you seen, and I guess it does bleed into compliance a little bit, where have you seen, athletic directors, not intentionally, but where have you seen them go astray with FHSAA policy? And then the obvious follow-up, what are some things that FHSA does, not you personally, but maybe it is personally, to help make sure that doesn't happen again?
So I think where folks sometimes go astray is times have changed to where rules change a lot quicker now. I would almost compare it years ago. You would have maybe 2 or 3 changes each year, and it would take a few years to get those done. I think now society as a whole, and it's trickled into athletics, is like, hey, if there's something that needs to change, let's change it now. So I think the difference is now is not everyone is aware of new rules, because rules do change. I get questions over stuff that may not have been a rule in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So it's just getting that information out there. We now send a lot of emails out. I credit our folks here who send out our weekly alert. Ryan Harrison is now over that. He does a tremendous job of that. I value that to a T. Everything that's coming up, everything that's due, everything that's current is going to be in that weekly alert. So our staff up in eligibility and compliance, the schools they oversee directly, they send emails to their folks periodically. Hey, it's beginning of the season. Remember to get your forms in. Remember this. Here's a new rule. Here's something we're seeing. So it's trying to be, again, more proactive and getting information out to folks. And we're still trying to figure out how to do that. I still think it's somewhere we still need to grow.
Now, this is going to be that live grenade that we toss on the desk. NIL is coming to Florida. I don't know if it's here yet from a high school perspective. Obviously, I talk to a lot of ADs around the country through the podcast, and many times they are shocked when I tell them that Florida, high school Florida, we already have the transfer portal. It's been around for a couple of years because our state legislature has allowed, and of course we allow it ourselves, kids to move quite liberally from school to school to school. So this could be opinion. I'm not saying it has to be, FHSAA policy from the top, but what are your thoughts, or what are the thoughts regarding NIL? And can you tell us what to expect, let's say, in the coming months or years?
Sure. So I'll share my personal thoughts first. Personally, I think there's a fear there, like everybody else, is you want high school athletics to be pure. You want high school athletics to be that experience. You talked about the transfers and stuff like that, and there's more of that. And the concern is, will NIL lead to more of those? Hey, if I'm a student, if I go to X school, maybe I get more deals or a better deal. So that's a concern. Like, you want folks to choose school for the school. If you don't get along with the coach, don't get along with teammates, sports teaches that adversity there. So you kind of want to work through those if allowed. I do think it's coming. So it's coming probably in some form or fashion. I'm thinking, or I'm hoping, it's going to move in a direction where it's at least a service provided, where I would even argue, your name, image, and likeness, from what I remember being on the outside of it, when that first started, that was the whole video game, and schools were selling shirts and stuff like that with kids' jersey numbers and stuff like that and making money off of it. I see it more, it's almost could be argued that it's a new job form for our teenagers now, where I worked at Publix as a kid. And now, if I do 6 Instagram posts a week, this sponsor is going to give me, $50 or a free glove or whatever it would be. So I think if it stays in the service aspect, I think we'll be okay. There's been a desire to keep school names out of it, to where, while you may know me as a person, you may know I attend this school. However, if you see the ad, I'll call it, or the commercial, you don't know for sure where I go. So if it takes that route, I think we're okay. The collectives in the college world has created fears. I'm hoping we don't have that in the high school world. Again, let's keep it on the job side of it and not, based on athletic getting paid for, scoring so many points or stuff like that.
Yeah, it's hard to, and that was a great answer. It's hard for, I guess, somebody like me of my age, to say, oh, I don't like this without sounding like the grumpy old man on the porch. Well, back in my day, but yeah, and those big, the kids getting cars and $1 million, that's not our rank and file kids. But you've done this for a while. I've done this for a while. It's not too much of a stretch to think that an unscrupulous parent or booster would not try to funnel some money to a kid to entice them. And that's the word in the FHSA, the Red Book, entice them to come and take their athletic talents to another school. Um, it, I do this all the time. We have some ADs, some are national, some are here in Florida, and they just rail against, NIL, NIL, NIL. And I ask them, high school ADs, how many of your kids have signed an NIL deal? How many? And it's zero. Okay. Nobody's got a deal, but yet the sky is falling. Um, where's FHSA on this? Are you discussing it? Or is there some active policy recommendations being written?
So the timing of the podcast here is good. So we have a workshop at the next board of directors meeting at the end of this month. So it's going to be an official workshop, so it's moved past the discussion phase to where there was a draft looked at the previous board meeting. We're in a discussion phase. So I would not be surprised if there's something in place for next school year. We have an April meeting, as I mentioned, coming up with a workshop. Our final scheduled meeting for the board of directors is June. So I would expect something to go in place, whether that's a committee to go over the appeals on these, whether that's a policy saying if you meet X, Y, Z, you can go in and do that. The drafts that we've looked at, looking at other states, is again providing a service for an exchange of, either getting goods, discount off a product, or even a financial piece. The concerns is, and honestly, right now we're trying to look for stuff where it's like the educational components for parents and families and students. When you're talking about high school age kids, I think we automatically go to the 18-year-old senior. What about the 14-year-old ninth grader? And you just don't want to have that student make a decision that's going to hamper his or her high school experience, later on down the road. There's taxes involved with this stuff. So, and if you would have told me as a 14-year-old kid, you got to make sure you turn in your tax information, I would have looked at you weird. Like I struggle with them now, I'll be honest with you. So, I mean, it's one of those things that you don't understand what you don't understand.
Mhm. Yeah, the landscape changes. Maybe it's not changing daily anymore like it was, but by the time this airs, who knows? It might have changed. Justin, we're going to do this at the end of the podcast, but one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit, whether it's about NIL or anything. What's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Email would be best. So that would be J Harrison, the letter J, HARRISON at FHSAA.org, Florida High School Athletic Association, the acronym. So .org, reach out to me. I generally, if I'm in the office, I'll have a 24-hour rule. I may not have an answer for you, but I'll at least respond to you saying I got it.
Okay. And again, the website, FHSA.org, Justin's email, contact information, and the rest of the FHSA staff is there. We're going to take another quick break. I know that's shocking to our regular listeners, but we will be back with more with Justin Harrison on the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our friends at Hometown Ticketing for their support of the podcast. Hometown Ticketing is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more, but I'm going to. Go to hometownticketing.com and let their team show you all the ways they can help you with online ticketing. They're going to set it up not just for athletic events, but things like school plays and concerts, school dances, even graduation. And here's the best part: every high school is assigned a dedicated client success manager that's going to provide you hands on support every step of the way. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to show off your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. It's also a great way to tell the story of your school's unique history and also show off your proudest moments. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Mention the podcast, you'll get a nice discount. We'd also like to thank Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks on a fundraiser and then got little, if any, return on your investment? Stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online platform out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. Our finance office loved it. It works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you found it. Snapraise.com. Welcome back, everybody. We're visiting today with Justin Harrison of the Florida High School Athletic Association. Justin, again, I'm not bragging. I talk to a lot of people through the podcast and as I travel, and people that are not in our business, educational athletics, oftentimes it's kind of gloom and doom. High school athletics is going to be going away in another 10 years or so. It's going to be all club and travel. What are your thoughts when you hear something like that?
It's funny. The first thing I go to is I see it as a challenge. I'm a piece in this puzzle now where I have a part in this, and I hope everyone else feels that too. If that feel is there, what are we doing to try to have it go in a more positive direction? If schools are losing kids in athletic programs, the numbers don't necessarily mirror that. I hear that as well. And while there could be a school that once had this program, sports program, they no longer have that sports program, stuff like that does sometimes happen. But as adults and any of our roles in this, what are we doing to try to correct that? What are we doing to try to keep that around? Because I think a lot of us do what we do because of high school athletics and the athletic background we have. And so I want to continue having that. I have a young daughter. She's going to be 3 this summer, where I hope when she's in high school, she chooses athletics or activities or whatever she would want to do. So, not only as my role as a staff member, but as a dad, I'm going to do my part to kind of keep it up. I think we go through ups and downs. I do think the club world has gotten bigger. Good for them. I think they offer a different aspect. I played travel ball. I played high school ball. So, it's a different environment. It's a different field. They're both good. I think they both do good with kids. It's just a different environment and offer different stuff. So I see it as a challenge to all of us where, if we feel that's the case, then what are we doing to try to either adapt with the times, meet what our current students are wanting now? And if we're not, how do we change that to meet their current needs?
I'm a professional podcaster. I need to unmute myself. That's a great answer, because you're absolutely right. Club is not a bad thing. It's certainly not the enemy. And it's not a right, wrong, good or bad. They both offer great experiences from a different perspective. And you mentioned the numbers, the National Federation numbers. I think, and maybe you can correct me on this if I am wrong. I think even if you leave COVID in, I think the numbers, the participation numbers, which the National Federation publishes every year, I think they're at or maybe even above where most of the sports were pre-COVID. Now, did I step on my toes there, or is that a semi-accurate statement?
No, I think that that's an accurate statement, and I think, when you hear, the comments that, club sports are taking over, not as many kids are doing high school sports. I think people see it from their own point of view, which for them is their reality. And that is the truth. If I work at a high school, if I live down the road from a high school, they used to offer a soccer program. They don't longer offer soccer. That's a direct impact that I see. So, I mean, again, but what they don't see is the other 10 schools in the state who have added a soccer program. So, it ebbs and flows. Our membership here in Florida, based on our schools, has gone up. We're up over 800 now. Since I've been on staff, we were around the 700 mark. So, in 15 some years, there's an additional 100 schools that are a member of the association. That's 100 more schools playing sports. So, and areas are building schools. So, these schools have sports programs. I think there's always a shift and there's always a change and stuff like that. I just think, whatever field you're in, whether you're in the club world or the high school world or both, most of our folks do both, is, you keep adapting to the times. Like what are the needs of our current students? I think that's key, as long as keeping the same values. I think the values of high school athletics are always the same. It's just how we teach them and how we get the message across is what needs to change, not necessarily the values.
Yeah, again, absolutely right. Your what you feel is going to be colored, in part by your perspective and where you're coming from. Great stuff. Justin, there's so many other things. We're gonna have to get you back on for another segment down the road. But if there was one message that you wanted to get out to our listeners, particularly our listeners here in Florida, about the FHSAA and all the great things that it does, and again, full transparency. I've been an FHSA proponent for years, and I've had a couple. You can attest to this. I've had a couple of fines. I've had a couple of missteps with our programs, but I think y'all do a great job. What's that message? What would you want to get out to our listeners?
I think to me, it's a we. I think we're all a team. Everyone serves a role. There's 25 folks here in this building who do a tremendous job. I have the advantage of seeing them every day, working with them every day, seeing who they are. Not everyone gets to see that ability. And unfortunately, I don't get to talk to the 800 member school ADs. I don't get a chance to talk to the thousands and thousands of coaches, not the almost 300,000 student athletes that we have in the state, the 8,000 officials. Everyone plays a role, and it's a we. Everyone has a different part in it. But that's the main thing I like to drive home is we're all in this together. Reach out to us. That's kind of our role, is to help to facilitate information, facilitate stuff that needs to happen. We don't always have the ability per bylaws and policies to make change. If change is desired, we have the ability, we know the process to get that rolling. If they feel that, and also we're here to help. I would love to have more calls on the front end than the back end. Hey, call us. We're here to anything weird. Call us. We'll help you out, as opposed to we may have done something wrong. We can do this. And the last thing is, our role as staff is to implement the rules in the book. Unfortunately, at times there are sanctions to that. There are penalties to that. I in no way see that as, I'll use you as an example, Jake, me penalizing you. I see it as, hey, this rule wasn't followed. Maybe here's the incident, here's the thing, and we actually move on. Anyone who spends time in athletics, I will give them the benefit of the doubt each time. We all have hiccups every now and again that happen. But, again, anyone who's in athletics, I will work with them to the end, because we're a team in this and helping our students.
Yeah. Great stuff. Well told. Okay. And one more time, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Email would probably be the best. It's my first initial and last name. So J Harrison, HARRISON at FHSAA.org.
Justin, this has been so cool. Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to share with our listeners. But we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you shared that you actually did spend some time in the AD's chair, but we're going to hear from our last sponsor, Athletic Surveys, who sponsored this particular segment. When we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on the very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in the toolbox. So let's hear from Athletic Surveys, and then we're going to find out what Justin Harrison is going to put in his athletic director toolbox. We'd like to thank Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. You know, athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group, that group that wants to complain about everything, the gripers. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And that information is tremendously valuable when you're talking with a frustrated parent or a student athlete, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting again with Justin Harrison, the Associate Executive Director for the Florida High School Athletic Association. Tremendous athletic background, but right now I'm going to challenge him to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let him put 3 things in the toolbox. So, Justin, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Very interesting. This is a tough one for me, Jay, because like I could probably come up with 100 things, but I'm going to take more of a philosophical approach, I think, on this. So, first thing I was going to say is a team. You have to build a team around yourself. Whether you have an assistant, whether you have 100 coaches, whether you have 5 coaches, a team, sharing your vision with them, communicating with them, allowing them to kind of do your stuff with you. Again, like as an AD, I think it's key. There's so much on your plate that if you try to do it all by yourself, I don't think you're going to be as efficient. You're not going to be as ineffective. So having a team around you and relaying your expectations, allowing them to see things, not like requiring them to do things the way you see it, what the end goal is, because if they take their path, it may be better for them and the overall goal. So having a team around you, deciding who that team is key. So that's going to be my first main item you have to have. My second one is an object, but I'm going to go into it. So it's my phone right here. Those on video can see my phone. But it's to use your phone. So many examples that I have the benefit of sitting in this job now and kind of saying, well, I wish you would have done that, or I wish, that person would do that. Communicate. Communication is key. I think it's not a lost. It's not as used as much in this world, I believe. Again, that's an opinion-based thing, but I think being able to communicate, if something's weird, call somebody, send them a text. It's too easy to get a hold of folks now. Communication is key. So using that phone, I think having it on you, using it, being available is key. And the last thing I will give, obviously being a part of the Florida High School Athletic Association staff, would be the FHSAA handbook. I actually have 3 in 3 different spots. I have one that stays in my office. I have one that stays in my house, and I have one that goes in my bag that I travel with. So beginning of the school year, I grabbed 3. I don't know if I'm allowed to or not on staff, but I do. And they go with me wherever I go. So from an AD's perspective, not only obviously whatever your state association rule book is, Also, any school type stuff you would need to have. Anything that you need to potentially quote or get information from at any point, because things change. So you may, recall stuff from 5 years ago, have not gone over that rule in a little bit, and it's changed since then. So having that information accessible and on you is key. So those are the three things, because I'm also a big proponent. If you try to get too many things, you're going to get lost in the shuffle. So those are the three things I think are big: is your team, your phone to use to communicate and communicate often with anybody, and your rules book, whatever your association or state or school would need. Have that on you at all times, because those are things you're going to need day in and day out.
Well, all of your tools are just outstanding. And of course, for Florida, you got to have that red book with you. But you made a very important point. To have your cell phone, but to use it, and you hit on that overall category that cell phone falls into: communication. There's so many ways that you can communicate. One is communicate with the FHSAA, like you said, be proactive. Justin, thanks again for spending time with our listeners. All the best as we move forward with our spring season, and I will look forward to seeing you in person. Well, actually, by the time this airs, I'm coming up to ADAC here next week, but at our FIAAA conference, where you and your staff do some of those compliance seminars.
Yes, sir. Happy to do so, and happy to be a part of this. Happy to come on whenever you want me again, Jake. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, well, we will hold you to that. For our listeners, we appreciate you tuning in. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day with either interviews or short segments. All we try to do is share best practices for athletic directors and leaders. We hope you come back next time for another segment of the Educational AD Podcast.